Exposing the money creation fantasy. I have been wanting to do a video on money creation for a long time. Now seems to be a good moment. I will pick up most of the content here from a whistleblower website called quatloos.com. There's a link in the notes, and this is based on a comment from a poster called Daily Planet, with a few edits of my own to make it a bit more clear. So, I'm going to read a comment by Daily Planet dated July 26th from the Quatloos website. I've already done some videos about Ron Van Dyke, so his name should be familiar to viewers of my channel. And here goes. Ron Van Dyke is telling everybody that the current financial system is a fraud. It is based on human ignorance, he claims. With this in mind, he has done a podcast this week saying he is ready for a debt jubilee and wants to set all the slaves free. The video was dated July 23, 2014. In the video, he says the current banking system is a fraud. Why does he say this? Well, he gives two main reasons. First, quote, fraud was the primary component of a lending agreement. Could he mean he failed to read the fine print? Second, because lending agreements are, quote, based on the concept that the borrower giving the lender something of value and the bank can then turn around and capitalize on it. Now, what in heaven's name is he talking about here? Perhaps he means, as one of the comments below his video explained, the borrower's signature is the value that allows the bank to create the money to loan the value back to the borrower. It's not an equal value exchange. Banks do not loan their own money. The promise to pay allows them to create money electronically. Well, that comes from one of Ron's posters. Okay, I have heard this sort of thinking before. The problem is, it's flawed thinking. There is a common misconception by some New Agers that banks somehow get access to free money by lending money, and a borrower's signature on the loan agreement allows them to access free money someplace. But they cannot tell you where, and they cannot tell you how that free money system actually works. The simple reality is that the borrower gets the money from the bank up front, usually on the day he signs the loan agreement. So the bank has performed its end of the bargain. The performance by the borrower comes later. Loan money is handed over by the bank, usually in the form of a check in the name of, say, a seller of a home. In exchange for the money, the borrower gives a promise to repay. The bank performs on day one. The borrower may or may not perform later. The exchange of that vital promise is somehow forgotten by some New Age people. They also ignore the reality that the bank will suffer a real loss if the borrower fails to honor his or her promise to repay. Sure, some will say, but the bank can securitize or resell that promise to repay. But if they do that, then someone down the line who has bought that promise will suffer the loss. And the remoteness of the loss does not make the loss any less real if the borrowed money is not repaid. In Ron Van Dyke's world of unreal economics, it is okay to be a deadbeat because banks did not tell you they might create the loan first when you sign the loan agreement and then fund it a little bit later. And fund it they must, because the check they write per the borrower's instructions in the loan will eventually be returned to the bank for payment. And at that moment, the bank will have to pay out good Fed funds. And the funding of the loan will need a deposit, a real deposit, which the bank will have to attract from someone else. In other words, all loans need to be funded or resold. And there is no free money not even for the bank. They will still need a deposit to back the loan asset on their balance sheet. Or if they have resold the loans with securitization, the mortgage payments will go to someone else, the holder in due course, instead of the lending bank. So there's no free lunch, no free money, and no fraud. Maybe someone should drag dear old Ron off to a police station for a few hours so he can ponder for a while until he understands that if you borrow money and break your promise to repay it, you have defaulted on a promise and defaulted on a legal contract. When you signed the contract, you gave the lender recourse to whatever provisions are in the loan contract. In what sense is any of that a fraud? The lending process has always been like that, even though some people, like Ron, may not have understand how it works. Why should it matter a scintilla why and how the bank funded its loan? If you have a better source for the money than for the bank, why not access it yourself? But I can assure you, there is no fantasy pot of gold out there which is handing out free money to the bank, which lends the money you borrow for your home mortgage. Now, some weeks ago, Mr. Van Dyke twisted his brain to try and put a possible adulterous relationship onto a high moral ground. His YouTube channel friends were confused and did not get his bizarre justifications. Now he has twisted his brain up again to try and justify not repaying lawful debts. This is not a very good example for others on how to behave honorably, yet some of his viewers seem to be applauding him for the mental gymnastics he is using in trying to wriggle out of a mortgage contract. Perhaps they too have some debts they wish to avoid repaying. Well, don't we all? Look, I am not against debt forgiveness. Indeed, I think some amount of debt forgiveness in our present time deserves a very thorough consideration. But it needs to be made around sounder principles, not using some half-baked and half-understood idea about how money is created. Bad-mouthing banks for bad behavior, such as buying politicians, may be correct, but bad-mouthing does not give anyone the automatic right to be a deadbeat. Honorable men and women do not behave that way. Well, okay. That comment was from Daily Planet on QL, with a few edits of my own. And I agree with most of Daily Planet's comment. I like the fact that he has addressed the New Age fantasies concerning money creation. I certainly agree with Daily Planet that banks do not get free money when they make a loan. They have to fund the loans on their balance sheets. They are blessed in a way that you may not be. They can get money very cheaply because of all the advantages that banks have. And maybe those advantages need to be considered, maybe withdrawn, or maybe reduced. But that is another question for another day. The main point here is about money creation and the lack of free money that banks do not have to repay. If you fail to pay a bank back, they will suffer a real loss. All the silly notions about money creation you hear on the web do not absolve borrowers from honoring their promises and meeting the legal requirements they have to repay loans. There are legal ways, for people to seek forgiveness or reduction of debts. Now, there are many problems about the way that banking works, and I too would like to see an end to the Fed. But let's focus on real issues and a grown-up understanding of money creation, not on made-up fantasies. As always, respectful comments on my videos are welcome.
Weird, crusty-sounding bankers, bankers, bonuses are not earned, they're just given to them.
I say those checkbook banging bankers who flog these mortgages
giving people the chance to own their own negative equity.
And yes, giving people a kick in the balls.
Banking, giving people a spanking.